So another week, another fascinating insight from Kubo himself from his very own Club Outside Q&A platform, where he's once again answering a question that has been bugging fans for some time now. And that question is, why doesn't Rukia recognize Isshin when she lives with him in the Kurosaki household? Now, I was alerted to this topic thanks to Simo Urahara's brilliant video that he uploaded recently, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, I would absolutely implore that you do so. But I figured this was worth us talking about as well, since we explicitly bring this up in our Isshin character analysis video. So the question is a pretty simple one. Why doesn't Rukia recognize Isshin despite the two of them coming into direct contact at various points during the Bleach storyline? And the timeline of Bleach as we know it would seemingly put these two characters as serving in the Gotei 13 at the same time. The timeline introduced in the Everything But the Rain mini-arc in the 1000-Year Blood War basically shows us that Isshin was the captain of the 10th Division around 20 years prior to the start of the Bleach storyline, which would of course mean that that's around the time Rukia is serving as well. And then this was further confirmed, further reinforced by the We Do Not Always Love You light novel, which states that Isshin was captain of the 10th Division around the same time Kaien Shiba was killed. And considering Isshin was a member of the Shiba household, that's a reaction I would have really liked to have seen. I imagine he would have been, probably devastated, and it would have been very different to the normal, upbeat, jovial Isshin that we know so well. And I think that could have been really fascinating. But more importantly for this video, that does explicitly mean that he is serving in the Gotei at the exact same time as Rukia. So why doesn't she recognize him? And Kubo actually gives us a kind of variety of different reasons as to why Rukia wouldn't know who this guy is, or at least why she wouldn't put two and two together, that she's actually living in the same household as an ex-captain of the Gotei 13. Certainly not a normal occurrence. But first of all, Kubo states that Isshin, of course, the simplest of answers, doesn't look anything like he used to look in Everything But the Rain. And for the most part, I can get with this. This is pretty accurate. Isshin, of course, is a young man in Everything But the Rain for the most part, whereas by the time Rukia would actually interact with him in the main Bleach storyline, he has aged, I would argue, considerably since that time, thanks to his, I would assume, accelerated aging now that he's living in a quote-unquote normal human body. So of course, where Rukia virtually looks identical to how she looked 20 years ago, suddenly Isshin looks like a totally different person at a totally different stage of his life. So fair enough, that makes a lot of sense that she wouldn't necessarily immediately think it's the same person. At the same time, he does virtually have the exact same haircut, and also, potentially more crucially, quite a similar personality. The next answer Kubo gives, the next reason Kubo gives, I'm maybe less sure about, although of course it's coming from Kubo himself, so you can't question it too much. But he states that Rukia, as a kind of, basic level unseated Shinigami, an unseated member of the Gotei 13, would very rarely, if ever, come into contact with a captain of another division. She might obviously spend time with her own captain, Ukitake, but to run into or have any dealings with the captain of a separate division entirely is, generally going to be reserved for seated officers, particularly 3 vice captain and, the captain, of course. But I do find this one a little harder to believe, because to me, the captains are the absolute elite of Soul Society. This is an entire military organization, and the captains are effectively the commanders of that military organization. And regardless of what seat you are, regardless of what squad you are, I feel like it's almost, mandatory knowledge to know who all 13 captains are. That's not that many people to remember. And these are the supposed, anyway, model Shinigami that everyone else is to look up to. And while I understand that as a member of the 13th Division, Rukia would obviously have the closest relationship with Ukitake, would look up to Ukitake and have dealings with him, I find it hard to believe that she wouldn't know, at least on a, basic level, who the other captains are the other squads. And I would kind of guess that she has maybe just seen him at some point in her time in the Gotei 13, but maybe not. Maybe that just doesn't happen, and maybe people very rarely leave their own barracks, although again I find that hard to believe. And there are even examples in the manga itself of, seemingly at least, I mean, potentially the Shinigami in question could be seated, but of seemingly unseated or at least ordinary Shinigami recognizing Isshin despite not being in the same squad as him. So when he's fighting White in Everything But the Rain, he accidentally crosses over from Naruki City into Karakura Town, where he is kind of confronted by, I think it's a member actually of the 13th Division, but they say that he has crossed over into their jurisdiction and they know exactly who he is. The same goes for the random Shinigami who are patrolling Naruki City at the time. They recognize him the moment he shows up. And to me, that just makes more sense than the answer we're getting here, because I just think that captains would be like celebrities in the Soul Society. Virtually everyone would know who they are. But maybe I'm wrong on that, and maybe Rukia was so far down the rungs that she doesn't really get privy to much knowledge at all. At the very least, I could potentially buy the idea that Rukia has seen him so little and spent so little time interacting with him that she wouldn't recognise him at all. But then I do kind of pull into question the whole Shiba angle of things. You know, she has such a close relationship to Cayenne Shiba. Does Isshin Shiba never come and speak with this guy, never come and hang out with him? Do they never talk at all? Or if they do, maybe they just go someplace other than the 13 barracks. I guess perhaps Cayenne being a vice captain, it's maybe more likely that he goes to see Isshin instead. But the final answer is, in my opinion, the most convincing of all, and this one does make a lot of sense as far as I'm concerned. And basically, that's the fact that the common knowledge is that Shinigami and humans cannot have children together. It's not physically possible, apart from, of course, Kisuke Urahara knows a way. And I can only assume it's the gi guy, they're talking about the gi guy that Kisuke gives Isshin in Everything But the Rain. Because I do believe the translation explicitly says that this is a special gi guy that will basically give you a normal human body. So in fact, I have the translation here, and yeah, Kisuke says that this gi guy has the power to provide the soul within with a fully human body. So that makes a lot of sense to me. That gi guy gives Isshin the capability to live as a normal human, right down to every single detail, whether that's having a relationship with somebody else, to having a child, to pretty much anything else that a human needs to do that maybe a Shinigami perhaps wouldn't, or certainly not with another human anyway. But of course we know from Turn Back the Pendulum that Kisuke took this gi guy with him when he was exiled from Soul Society, as these were the same kind of gi guy that he provided the Vizards with in order to help conceal them from the Soul Society, while he worked to stabilise their holification. So again, it makes a lot of sense that only Kisuke knows about this, although again, it is mentioned off the cuff numerous times in the Soul Society arc that people are aware of this strange gi guy that would cause someone to be exiled. But Rukia, being an unseated officer, would probably not be privy to this information at all. So then, if a Shinigami can never have a child with a human, at least to the knowledge of regular Shinigami, Rukia would never expect or anticipate to see a Shinigami living in the human world and having settled down with a wife, 3 kids, living a seemingly normal human life, holding down a regular job. It's not something she would ever have expected to see, as it's presumably never happened before. And of course, we know the magnitude of Ichigo's birth. We understand the importance of the fact that a Shinigami and a human, admittedly, human Quincy, with a hollow Reiatsu, had a child. We know that Ichigo is this perfect hybrid because of that union. So it is a huge deal for this to happen. It's not something that normally happens, and this is a totally, just kind of almost a random event. Obviously, Aizen planned some of it, but White attacking Masaki was not something he anticipated. But regardless, Ichigo's birth is abnormal. We know that much. And so it makes a lot of sense then for Rukia to turn up at the Kurosaki household and to see this guy who's acting like some kind of a goofball. He's got these kids that he absolutely dotes on. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to assume on her account that she would not go, isn't that the former captain of the 10th Division? Because that's just so random. That's just so unlikely to happen that she would be like, this guy who seems to be a human in every sense of the word, who has 3 children, who had a wife, who has a job, I'm pretty sure he's the former captain of the 10th Division, who I have only seen cursory glances of. I think that makes a lot of sense, and honestly the final answer is the one I am the happiest with. Now, in my opinion, while I am satisfied with these answers on Kubo's behalf, I don't think it answers the reverse of this, which is why didn't Isshin see Rukia or have kind of any kind of recognition of Rukia whatsoever, or as we brought up in his character analysis video, why he seemingly allowed himself to be virtually killed when Fishbone D attacked the Kurosaki clinic, despite the fact that he knows of hollows. When Masaki was attacked by Grand Fisher, he could still sense that. Of course, his powers may have completely vanished by this point, but Isshin would still be well aware of hollows and Shinigami and their existence, and that pool is still a bit muddy in my opinion. But it's very nice nonetheless to have these kind of answers given to us, and unlike some of Kubo's more recent Q&A answers, these are fairly straightforward. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Kubo's answers to this question about Rukia recognizing Isshin. Are you happy with it? Which of those answers about him looking different, about Rukia not running into a captain in Soul Society, and about Rukia never anticipating a Shinigami to have a child at all with a human, do you like the best? I think the last one is absolutely my favourite. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done already, guys, as you're in the best place for Bleach content every single week, just like this one. Give the video a thumbs up as well if you enjoyed it. It really helps support me and the channel by giving the video more exposure on the old YouTube algorithm. And of course, we do have a Patreon for the channel as well if you really want to take the support for me a step further, just like everybody on screen is doing right now. An enormous thanks and a massive shout out goes out to each and every one of my patrons. I couldn't do this without you, and I truly do appreciate it. Alright guys, but until next time, I'll catch you later. I'll see you then.